Tennessee's had a rough week so far, and it's Thursday, so hey, you were thinking it snowballs down the hill, and it's only going to build speed, and it's only going to grow bigger, and this is all terrible. And then you get the big news today. Danny White, former now athletic director at Central Florida, has been hired. And let me not cut any corners here in telling you this is a monumentally big move for Tennessee. So there's industry-wide applause today. Everyone approves of this move. Like, everyone loves this, and everyone's kind of surprised by it. I can tell you there was not much Danny White traction even within the last 24, 48 hours. It really started to pick up speed this morning, which is the hallmark of a very well-conducted athletic director search, by the way. Hopefully the coaching search goes accordingly. So this is widely regarded as a home run. I was looking over at Vols 24/7 a little bit beforehand, and Patrick Brown over there put out this little tidbit of information. You want to know how to get yourself a big-time athletic director job? It used to be that you need to be a former coach. It used to be that you needed to be a former player. This is the kind of resume builder that you need to be able to flaunt in a job interview setting. UCF, this is from Patrick Brown over on Vols 24/7. UCF raised $35.5 million in donations last fiscal year. That is 4 times what they raised just 4 years ago in the fiscal year, or the physical year, as I like to call it. Make the athletic department a lot of money. Be a good fundraiser. That is how you become a major athletic director these days. You can hire all these lieutenants in the world to run various branches of the operation. You don't have to know the intricacies of women's volleyball. You don't have to know how to put together a very, very impressive route tree in lieu of hiring a wide receivers coach. You need to be able to run an athletic department. And then you get folks who know how to make football hires. And if you're not comfortable with it, hire a search firm and then just tell them what you need and they'll go get it for you. Be able to run an athletic department. So that's what Tennessee did today. That's one giant box checked. Now we know that there's this other box. We're just kind of looking at it over here in the corner, and it says head coach, and it's wide open. There's no name. There is no check mark in that box. Where are we going? Initially, as I told you on the show, and as I've said many times, I got the sense, as did many of you, that when Kevin Steele was brought in, and then subsequently as Fulmer is, let me rephrase, as Philip Fulmer retires, even though the language in his contract, if he were to be fired, is exactly what's happening in terms of compensation right now. But make no mistake, it's a retirement. As Philip Fulmer retires and rides off into the sunset, and Jeremy Pruitt is unceremoniously dumped on the street, I think there's a little bit of a to-be-continued theme with that too. But as that happens, Kevin Steele's in there, been there about 2 weeks. We just assume, well, that's going to be your interim head coach for a while. And that is the role that he's holding now. Acting head coach, interim head coach. That's what he is right now. Now, here is the million-dollar question, or maybe even a multi-million-dollar question in Knoxville, Tennessee. Is that going to be sustained? Is he going to be there for an extended period of time? Because I can tell you, I woke up this morning, and that was my thought. If I had to bet money this morning at 8 a.m., I would say, yeah, Kevin Steele is going to be the head coach there through spring football and maybe even beyond. Not long term, but maybe the 2021 season. Well, then Danny White gets hired today. And among his first quotes that come out today, he is talking about prioritizing a head coaching search. Now, I can't guarantee that means they're going to get a guy. I mean, it's one thing to prioritize something, and it's one thing to allocate the proper funds for it. It's another thing to get someone to agree to your job. The value of the job, the profile of the job I'm about to talk about. But here is one glimmer of hope. We did the podcast this morning, and one of our listeners asked, can you give me a reason to believe? Good Rod Stewart song. Can you give me a reason for hope here? Well, this may be one. You hit a Grand Slam athletic director, and the first thing that Grand Slam hire is saying is, we're about to go do the same thing with head coach. So we'll see. The old ... We'll see. But it's a 1,000% good day for Tennessee. It's just sandwiched in between a whole lot of bad days. What are they selling? So this is the profile of the job. This is kind of the next step in what we're talking about. You can believe in your program. You can believe it's an elite job. And I've told you my thoughts on the Tennessee job. I think much more highly of the job than apparently a majority of people do. But right now, listen, there's a cloud over that program. Make no mistake about it. It makes it a much tougher sell. Again, make no mistake about that. But the perception versus the reality is really the fascinating crux of this whole thing to me. Here's what the perception is. The perception is, all right, Pruitt just got fired. There's been a bunch of rumors about what was going on there. Listen, personally, I know what's gained national traction this week. I've heard a lot about Tennessee. I've not heard, the old McDonald's angle. I hadn't heard that personally. I cannot vouch for that. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world, but I can't tell you that happened. What I can tell you is perception is there was a lot of dirty stuff going on there. You don't have to believe the rumors because Donde Plowman, the chancellor there, and the president, and Philip Fulmer, they sat there at a desk and they told you multiple level 1 violations. We have reason to believe that's coming. Multiple level 2 violations. We've been investigating ourselves in conjunction with the NCAA, kind of sitting off to the side and watching us. And, you're led to believe, and anybody with common sense would be led to believe, ooh, it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better around here. Well, that is one train of thought. And you may be right in thinking that. I could offer you up another train of thought. I could, again, offer you maybe a little more of a ray of hope that things may not be quite as bleak as they appear. So we'll get to that in just a second. But as it relates to this coaching search, there's going to be truth dealt in this coaching search. Everything is going to be put on the table. If Tennessee's interviewing me, and for the record, they haven't yet, but if they're interviewing me for the head coaching search and you're trying to draw me away from Pate State and you're trying to get me to come to Tennessee, I got to get all the information from you. And you better believe I'm going to have language worked into my contract where if things end up not being as you made them appear, I'm going to get out of here and you're going to pay me a big buyout and severance and whatnot. So everything's going to be on the table. When you pitch me your job and you come to me, what if this is what you tell me? What if you tell me, listen, there was a lot of legal posturing going on, and we had to get out of this deal with Pruitt. We had to do it by any means necessary. Now, that doesn't mean that we went below board on it, but we may have used some very strong language in the reasons why. And we may have gone and found our out, and then we may have thrown level 1, level 2, and we may have thrown it out there. And all the while, what if we told you, future potential head coach, that we've kind of gotten guidance back from the NCAA that if we handle this properly, maybe that'll serve as a justified response. And we may not be expecting anything further from Indianapolis. If that's the case, your job just became a whole lot more attractive to me. That's what's happening. Now, I can't tell you that is happening. What I'm saying is that's the what if. That's the big what if game that they're playing right now. Wednesday was brutal. I mean, yesterday, make no mistake, it was brutal. They lost. I could argue they lost their best defensive player, their best offensive player, another starting linebacker, another starting offensive tackle. I don't think people are finished going into the transfer portal. It would surprise me very much if we didn't end up seeing more headlines. I mean, as we've been on air, for all I know, there have been 1 or 2 players. But the hope here again, I think if you're a Tennessee fan right now, you got a good hired athletic director. I think the overwhelming hope now has to be maybe a lot of what we've been led to believe is coming down the pike. Maybe there is a light at that end of that tunnel, but maybe it's not a freight train. Maybe it's just a pickup truck. And we get hit, you've been hit already. There is no prayer Tennessee's going to be anywhere remotely close to 85 scholarship players this fall. In fact, I'll tell you exactly what I'd do. If I were Tennessee, I just put out a press release this Friday at 4:45 saying that we're self-imposing 15 scholarship reductions. You're already going to anyway. There's no prayer you're going to be anywhere near 85. Why don't you just go ahead and get the added perceptional credit for having slapped yourself on the wrist? I don't know that anyone would really care all that much 5 years from now. They wouldn't look back and play the semantics game with you. And that's kind of like, if I'm a kid, if I'm 10 years old and I feel terrible, I got the flu, so I know I'm not going out to play anyway. And I also know I got a terrible report card that's about to come home next week. I go to my parents and I say, Mom, Dad, I feel terrible. I've let you down in the classroom. I've let myself down in the classroom. I am going to self-impose a weekend's restriction on myself. I'm not going to go out and play. And you can take it to the bank that shows you my contrition. I'm very serious about this. That's what I would do if I was Tennessee. I'm not going to have these players. Well, let's just go ahead and pretend it's a punishment we put on ourselves. So I think right now the ray of hope is Tennessee is not accepting defeat whatsoever. They sound very aggressive, which is a refreshing tone after what's happened over the last week or so up there. And so now the search is on for the new head coach at Tennessee. There are names being thrown around. Lane Kiffin's name's out there. I think Lance Leopold's name at Buffalo is kind of an off the radar, but it's tied to Danny White. That's out there. I think if this search is conducted properly, there are going to be names involved that you would have never thought about. And if the profile of this job ends up being that to which is above what perception is, there may be some big names that maybe you don't think you can get, that the money sounds like it's going to be there for. And if the cloud over this program doesn't end up being nearly as dark as it seems, then who knows what Tennessee could end up doing here. So all I'm telling you is, for everyone who's already punted on the next 5 years of Tennessee football, maybe so. Let's just wait and see. We got time. Let's wait and see.